By committee reports are due immediately. I'd also like to ask, are there any known illnesses that anyone knows of? We're going to dispense with the rest of our business meeting tonight, and I'll turn the program over to Eva Wilson now. Oh, there is a paper going around that we would like for everyone to sign it, the meeting attendance, guests and everyone, please sign.
I'd like to welcome all of our guests tonight, all of the Lions who have come to be with us, and anyone else who is not a Lion or a Lioness, welcome. This gentleman that I have to introduce, I think everyone here probably knows a lot better than I do. So I'm just going to say we are honored to have with us the distinguished Judge Northern, and he's going to tell us the history of the Rolla Lions Club. Judge Northern.
I think she should be fine, that line, Judge Northern.
Well, I would hope that I'd be able to proceed tonight without being interrupted by this fellow next to me. He was named after me, and he thinks that gives him the privilege of interrupting and saying whatever he wants to just because he was named after me. Well, I say that he was named after me. I'm about a few years older than he is. And I'm probably older than anyone here tonight, and that seems to be the trouble nowadays. I seem to be older than anybody else, every place I go. I haven't prepared a speech for you tonight, but I understood that you wanted me to tell you a little bit about the beginning of the Rolla Lions Club, kind of going back into history a little bit. I want to read to you the names of those who have been members of the Rolla Lions Club for more than 40 years. I seem to be the only charter member left, and I have been a member of the club for 48 years. 2 years from now, we'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the club. Then I'm followed by Claude Null, who's been a member for 47 years. Line Doctor.
It's better.
All right. Line Dr. Earl Fine, 46 years. Line Jim McKibben, 46 years. Ralph Marcellus, 44 years. Line George Jonas, 44 years. Line Leroy Grant, 43 years. Millage Smith, Line Millage Smith, 43 years. And Line William Mueller, 42 years. This club has had 5 district governors. The first district governor was Lion Reverend O.B. Jackson, followed by Lion Millage Smith, and Millage was followed by Lion Marty Ryden, who was followed by Lion Ed, being followed by Lion Chris Clinton. Now, that's quite a distinction for a club. When the Rolla Lions Club was organized, there was only 2 districts in the state of Missouri, 26A and 26B. I have no idea how many districts there are today. 11, did you say? And that indicates somewhat the growth of Lionism in the state of Missouri. The thing that I guess that you're primarily interested in is the history of the Rolla Lions Club and how it got started. And I want to give you not only the history of the Lions Club, but a little history of the background of the society in which we lived at that time, somewhat like the present day. We had been in a recession, and 5 years later, the Democrats claimed that we were coming out of the recession. Today, we've been in a recession, and the Republicans claim that we're going out of the recession. But there still is a lot of unemployment. There was back in 1935 a lot of unemployment at that time. So the economic situation was just about the same then as it is now. However, I think that maybe in some respects we were better off back in those days and than we are today, and I guess in other respects we're much better off today than we were then. But to give you a little bit of the history, which was really has something to do with the foundation of our club, I was attending the university at Columbia in 1926, 27, 28, 29, well, not in 26, I guess better start in 1927. The last year that I was in school at Columbia, I had borrowed $200 from the Knight Templars Loan Fund, and my sister had given me $50, and that's all the money we had for 1 year at the University of Missouri at Columbia. I paid $25 a month for room and board. Don't you wish you could get room and board for $25 today? In order to augment the income just a little bit, I had Thursday mornings off, and so I got me a job at the Boone Tavern Hotel there in Columbia, waiting tables. And one of my jobs was to set up the tables down in the basement in the meeting room for the Rotarians. They had about 50 members in the club, and it was my job to arrange the tables and to put the butter out. And I got very proficient in passing out the butter. It came in these little flakes, you know, patties of butter. And I got so that I could go down the table and just like dealing cards out and flip that butter over and hit those little plates until one day the boss caught me doing it, and I almost had to go look someplace else for another job. But I remember that waiting tables there in the Daniel Boone Tavern, serving the Rotarians. And there was one loudmouth individual, about like some we had in our club, who was always up doing things and everybody looking to him. He was the district governor, and his name was Bob Hill. And for some reason or other, I remembered that name. Well, as time went along and we came back home, I was practicing law and bumming around with such fellows like Charlie Tucker and Sam Smith and Leland Graft. We had a quartet, and we bummed around together quite a bit. And there were some other young fellows, and we felt like that we ought to have some kind of an organization. We had no service clubs in Rolla. There was the Chamber of Commerce, but nobody was particularly interested in belonging to the Chamber of Commerce unless you were in business and felt like you needed to support the commercial interest of the community. There were no other clubs. We did have what we called the Hub Club. It really wasn't a club. It was just the understanding that anybody that wanted to eat lunch down at the Edmund Long Hotel on Wednesday was welcome to attend. They did elect a chairman, and he served for a period of 6 months, and about all he was supposed to do is to try to have some kind of entertainment there. But outside of that, the club had no further goals or ideas on the thing. So we thought that we ought to have some kind of a club for us young fellows. And I thought about the Rotarians there in Columbia, and I remembered the name of Bob Hill. And so I wrote a letter to Mr. Bob Hill. Of course, I'm sure that he wasn't district governor 5 years later, but that's the only thing we knew to do. I never did hear from him, but a short time after the letter was written, my law partner, Mr. Lou Brewer, who had just recently been the United States District Attorney in St. Louis, was called on by a man representing Rotary International, and I always assumed and thought maybe that while I'd written on the letterhead of Brewer and Northern that Bob Hill had finally gotten this letter and referred it to the then district governor of the Rotarians, and he did some investigation and found out that L.H. Brewer was a former United States District Attorney, and this was the type of individual that the Rotarians were looking for. They wanted somebody who was old and distinguished, and so he came down and contacted my law partner. Didn't say anything to the young fellows, but that's all right. We really didn't know what was going on anyway. But they started organizing and getting charter members for the Rotarians. And they got fellows like Bert Williams, that's Rex Williams' father, John Williams' grandfather, who was the cashier of the Rolla State Bank, the only bank in Phelps County that didn't close its doors and was not liquidated during the Depression of '32. So he was an outstanding, successful businessman. And then they had also John Aston, who was not the owner, but operated as the owner the Edmelong Hotel and Coffee Shop. And of course, he was an outstanding businessman. Before he came here, he was a streetcar conductor down at St. Louis. But he was a very fine, old, distinguished gentleman. And they had some others like that, like Cap Hanley, who was old and ready to retire, but was distinguished. And this constituted the original charter members of the Rollo Rotarians. Now, we had a man in town by the name of Colonel Charles L. Woods, who was editor of the Rolla Herald and had operated a newspaper here for many, many years. He was a Democrat, a Virginia Democrat, and I'd heard him make speeches many, many times, and he always started out his speech by saying, always very dignified, and as he put his hand in his vest like this and rear back and say, "George Washington was born in Virginia. I was born in Virginia too." He was a fine, distinguished public official in this county. He had served in the Missouri State Legislature. He was passed by for some reason and wasn't selected as a Rotarian. And he was a member of the Episcopalian Church, and the rector of that church was the Reverend O.B. Jackson. And of course, Jackson and Colonel Woods were very close for obvious reasons. And their feelings were rather hurt. They had been slighted. They were outstanding citizens in the community, but they'd been passed over. And this hurt just a little bit, to be rejected by other people in your community. O.B. Jackson claimed, and I'm sure is true, to have at one time been a member of an organization known as the Lions International back in Indiana. So he contacted Lions International and